My name is Catherine Galden, and I'd like to introduce you to a project Janice Arterberry and I are working on to commemorate the 20th anniversary of the Hill Country Chapter. As members of the Anniversary Planning Committee, we have taken on the task of documenting through video interviews and written material some of the personal recollections of our members, beginning with the very first class that was formed in 2002. It is our intention to divide the 20 years of our history into 4-year increments. So in April 2022, we interviewed Jim Stanley, Jane Crone, and Susan Longacre, all members of the Hill Country Chapter during the early years between 2002 and 2006. In this video, they talk about the formation of the chapter, some of the people they knew, and give insight into the mission and continuing purpose of the organization we are all a part of. This is the first installment of a 5-part video series that will, at its conclusion, bring us up to the present time. The videos will all be published on our chapter's YouTube channel, and the accompanying documents, written from information found on our archives of newsletters, can be found on the website. We hope that you enjoy this first installment of our video series.
The idea for us to have a chapter in Kerrville really came from Susan Sander, who is the founder of Riverside, but she had attended the first class in San Antonio, and so she knew some of the people that helped them put their class together. More than half, probably 2/3 of the people in the first class already knew each other because we were all volunteering here at Riverside. Most of us were up in age. People old enough to volunteer don't tend to be in their 30s and 40s.
Right.
There's about 25 of us. And it was organized by people that I knew, and so that first class was something where, you know, a lot of us already knew each other. Well, I mean, there were several people that were part of organizing it, and of course they had directions from the state. Okay? Mm-hmm. Susan was one of them. Sandy Pena was one of them. Let's see, and Rufus came in and helped. Jane Crone, right. And several people that are no longer with us. Barbara Lowenthal, et cetera, et cetera. And so all of them kind of worked together, you know, there wasn't a great amount of selection going on, but you know, it was probably everybody that wanted to be in the class was in the class. And Rufus, I'm sure, had an inordinate amount of say in you know, the classes and who the teachers they could get and stuff like that. So anyway, we did that, and that was the first class, and so it was a lot of, you know, a lot of friends. And Sandy was the first president, and she was very, very good at it. So that I was super blessed to have her, you know, what she did to accomplish it, to start to be the next president. That made my life a lot easier. The one thing that Rufus did that put us aside from San Antonio, Austin, Dallas, is it was primarily professionals who worked in the field, had been trained, And these people were not the kind of people that you get to teach you how to build a flower garden or a rain garden or stuff like that. That people in the cities. I mean, I'm not saying what they were doing are doing is wrong. It's just that it's different out here, and we were much more into understanding rural property and all the things that go with it. During the third year, the third regular class, is when I set up the class for people the special class that wanted to become people doing LMAT. Those classes were in the afternoon, so some people went to the regular class in the morning, and then they went to this one, which is mostly out at Kerwin area. For all the same people that were giving us the regular talks, except they were telling us how to handle landowners and all that kind of stuff.
So during the first 4 years, did you start expanding into other counties, or had that started right away?
No. These 4 counties, the original 4 counties, were all that we thought of at all until the I've forgotten what they used to call it anyway. The other 6 counties or whatever, and they were just kind of faltering. So, sort of, I think Michelle kind of tried to get us to take care of it. If we're talking about teaching people about the land and all that stuff, Leopold a whole bit. Yeah, that I enjoy. Teaching people to identify plants was, it's trying, it's difficult, but it's, it's a worthwhile thing to try to do. It's important that they know enough to not mislead on too many things, because it might be what they say on the LMAT visit. What they say may be the last thing that landowner ever hears, and if it's wrong, then that's not good. So when we came down here, we had all this free time. We went to every situation where some of these experts around were giving some sort of a talk. Everything we heard of, we drove there. We went to Uvalde, we went to Sonora. So we immersed ourselves in situations that were in fact educational and that had to do with the land and gives you a view of the world and an understanding of things like that. After LMAP was established and all of that, and I had a little more time, it occurred to me that what we needed to do is to contact more people. And so the first thing I did was write the first book. I just walked unannounced into the editor's office at Daily Times and said, "How would you like for me to write you a column?" And she said, "How much do you want for it?" And I said, "I don't want anything for it." And she said, how often do you want to write one?" And I said, "1 a week." And she said, "Okay, there's your editor, you work with her." And I'm still working with her. Mm-hmm. It's pretty obvious that what I have to say goes somewhere where someone understands it, reads it, is interested in it, at a level that works. And you know, I've been doing it for 12 years now, and that's a lot of that. But every time I think about stopping, you know, I get something happens that somebody says what a great thing it is, blah blah blah, and it just kind of makes you want to keep doing it. So that's what I'm doing. I don't think we're as a chapter doing as much for individual landowners as we used to. And we're probably doing more for what might be more of the city kind of stuff. The last class I taught, I said something about one of the people in the class asked what they could do to learn enough to do LMAP. And I said, well, I don't know, I guess we could maybe have a special class afterwards. So, I don't remember exactly the words, but it's something to that effect. And this person asked, well, how many of you would like to do that? And 18 hands went up. I was shocked, because I never had that many people in a given class with any interest whatsoever. So we did have that class, and had about 12, 15. I would say probably no more than 2 or 3 were learning enough, had already learned enough, were interested enough or whatever to really pursue that. But that alone would have been more than we've had before. The main thing is to look over the property enough to get a feeling for the condition of the land. And then to recommend ways of managing the land that would make it healthier, for want of a better term. It was primarily to prove to the landowner that you knew something about what you were talking about. Well, now look, all they know about Texas Master Naturalist is what they see on a little card or something. They call up, say, could you come in? Some of them are very hesitant to have someone else walk their property. Very hesitant to have someone that they think might be from the government to see, to see their property. And then the business of identification is partly because the landowner wants to know what they have. But most of what you tell them, they'll forget. I mean, it's just, you can't do that and expect people to remember all the names and everything. But it does tell them something about your level of expertise. And if they don't have some feeling of that, then they're going to ignore everything you said anyway. There's nothing else that's quite like it, quite like Master Naturalist. There's, NIPSOT and all are very helpful. Places like this and Bandera and all the other places. are very useful, but they don't touch people in a way that causes them to act differently. And that's what I think Master Naturalist probably still does, instill in people a slightly different view of the world. I hope they do. And if so, then that's what we're really still for.
Oh, good.
So it was a blank slate when we started. We had, some help. Kip Hart helped a lot, and, the people who had been in chapters in other cities who had already done this, who were the mentors for the people coming up through us. This is the roster. There are probably 5 or 6 of us who actually sat down with Susan and hashed out, we need to put this in there and let's put it in this order, because there was no book to follow. We just made it up as we went along, knowing what the topics were and what would we say, where would we get the information on geology, who could tell us that, and who could do something else and put it together. And, Susan was the spearhead at all.
So you, the very students, were creating your own classes.
Right,
you went
but there was no curriculum. Susan and Jim and Kip Hart, who moved here, who had been in North Texas chapter, brought his knowledge along about starting on whatever. So then none of these people some of the people had gone through the class in other places. So we had the option in the beginning. You could go take it in San Antonio, you could go to Austin. Well, we didn't want to do that. Well, then you've got to start a chapter. You didn't want that. You would have to start a chapter. So that's why we started the chapter. That's pretty much how it started out, in the beginning. And then we just, started advertising. And it was a lot of word of mouth. Most of us were either in the bird club here, and at that time the Native Plant Society was starting in Fredericksburg. That got me going because I'm a birder. There's a group of people that are like interest. So let's get some of those birders to get involved with this new organization that we're starting. So a lot of us knew each other before through other organizations. We were meeting actually here. The building was already here. It went through a lot of different people, organizations involved with being here, but we met here. I remember meeting here. I think that's a, for us, that was, the thing that was here. We wanted to learn more, be out more, do more. And in order to do it, you had to start a chapter. So that's how it started. And Susan was really the one who was able to put it all together. Okay, we need a section on weather. And who do we talk to? Who do we get? How do we go about it? Where should it be in the book? Where should it fall in place? I don't remember following another chapter's. Susan maybe been following another chapter's, outline of what they did or what they were talking about. So I don't remember that exactly. We wanted the chapter to happen. We wanted it to happen. In order for it to happen, we had to come up with the curriculum and people who are interested in it to fill in those other seats, that are going to come as we start, advertising and things like that. So, and most of the people were involved in some way or the other, at least interest-wise, in out of doors or learning or, what's going on, what's that bug kind of deal. So they were already pre-programmed to be looking at stuff as the help. Me in the beginning, I had no idea what would be happening 20 years down the road. We didn't look 20 years down the road. So,
Jim said the same thing.
It's just like, whoa, I can't even keep up with the technology. It's unbelievable. Just that little portion of the organization is way beyond me. I'm still outdoors digging in the dirt. Oh, I think just reaching out to the community, I see a lot more information going to the community through either this chapter or all chapters or the whole spectrum. People are not they're not so, what do you mean? What kind of organization is that? I think a lot more people have probably heard about the Master Naturalist program, so they're probably more in gear to know what's going on than having to start and explain from the beginning. I think just the advertising or the word of mouth or whatever is gone really far beyond what we ever thought about. Oh, I think so, and I think, I think if you look at what people are doing, just as, as volunteers in the community, and, it's the old each one, teach one kind of deal. So, it can't, some people come take the class and that's it. And a lot of people come and take the class and, whoa, they're off and running kind of deal. So everybody is different. Different interests or different aspects of what it was, and to keep focusing on it's not for you to go home and work on your ranch. It's you to go home and tell somebody else about what's going on, and that's always been, I think, a thing to remember in trying to recruit people, or people who say, oh, I want to take the class. Well, why? I want to make my ranch better. No, not necessarily. You're taking the class so you can be teaching someone else and learning more for somebody else's benefit. This is a learning thing. It's not just for you to know how to take care of your ranch.
How do we best do that?
I think just to remind people and, ask them what they want. And when the minute they say they're doing it just for their own property, maybe think again about, the whole organization. In the beginning days, we were starting a nature center in Fredericksburg. So once that was approved, that was my hours right there, was that. And other organizations, people who were working at Riverside, they were, that's where they were. And, my friends who started a native plant chapter in Bernie from Fredericksburg and stuff like that. So we had our interest, and that led to the hours once we could get our activities approved. We were all on the same wavelength about putting things in our communities. Susan was the spearheader here of stuff here. I came before I moved here, and I was like, there's a nature center here. Well, where is it? And there's nothing here. There's an old building here and a sign. So that was Susan's start. And when I moved here, then she was getting things going. So, some people overlapped in organizations and interest, and it worked well. And at the same time, we were starting I wasn't starting, but the Native Plant Society was getting going. So here was another double over group of people, because if you're interested in the outdoors, well, what's that plant? So that was a lead into starting and working with the Native Plant Society in Fredericksburg. And, same thing about the Native Plant Society here, or Bernie, or any place else. It's all a group of like-minded people, whatever, in the organizations mix very well together. Well, I think it's interesting that you might be able to interest someone in doing something that they had no idea that they would be interested in. I see taking a class in something somebody doesn't. I take classes on things I don't know anything about. But, from that I may become more interested in doing something with geology or with, weather or whatever the thing is. So, you never know. It's certainly amazing to see how the chapter has grown over the years. And,
Doesn't that give you great satisfaction?
Oh, I'm glad that there's more people out there doing the work that we want to be done.
Do you see yourself as a pioneer?
No, I was just somebody who digs in the dirt.
But you are. You are.
But I think for me that just to know that there's that many more people out there on the same wavelength that I am, because I'm not going to be here forever, and somebody's going to have to take my place, and I want somebody to take my place. I want somebody to, whether it's the Native Plant Society, it's the Friends of the Fredericksburg Nature Center, whether it's, Master Naturalist, whatever it is, I'm hoping there are people out there who are going to take my place. and putting on the number of things that we put on for the community for Fredericksburg is one of the things that we work on as volunteers, is go back to our community and do the things. It's fine if you're,
Yes.
you see the course, you take the class and whatever, but if you don't go home and do something with what you've learned,
Share it.
then it was not what we hoped you would come out of it with. Because we would want you to go home and take this information and do something with it.
Right. Is that the advice that you would give the younger
I think
people?
so. Learn it, but remember to pass it on, because we are all just here for a while, and somebody will come after us, and we want them to be like-minded information. Pass it on.
Well, Jane,
It's
thank
us.
you so much. Do you have anything else you'd like to
No,
say?
not a thing. It's a great organization, and we certainly are a band of friends.
I love that.
Not a band of
We're a
brothers.
band of friends.
A band of friends.
Yes. I'm Susan Longacre. I have lived here in Kerrville for 20 years now. We moved in about 2003. I was in the 2005 Master Naturalist class, which I think was the fourth of the classes that the Hill Country, after the formation of the Hill Country chapter. My interest in nature comes from way back when. I was getting indoctrinated with geology and the outdoors as a child, because my father was a geologist, geophysicist. And
Oh my goodness.
we would take these driving vacations through the national parks of the West, and I'd have a geology lesson going on there in the car.
Wonderful. Lucky.
Little did I know that by the time I was 25, I had a bachelor's, a BS, and a PhD in geology myself, and that I was entering into my father's field. This was in mid-60s, I guess, well, late 60s when I actually went to work. And women in that field were rare as hen's teeth at that time. Not anymore, thank goodness. But it's a field where I have an awful lot of passion, and was able to share some of that with the Master Naturalist program, because for, maybe about 5 years in the vicinity of the 2010, 2015 classes, I was part of the geology program in the curriculum. So,
And the work that you're doing right now as a Master Naturalist volunteer?
we're going to put on an exhibit here in the atrium on fossils, and it's going to be an exhibit that will go for a year. And we are at this point, we're trying to gather the material that will be the various components in the exhibit. Did you know we had a state fossil? Yeah, his name is it's Paluxysaurus jonesi. Yeah, it's Texas Nature Conservancy, a ranger with them down at an apple festival down at Medina, and I was talking about, I wanted to get into trying to learn about the fauna here in the Hill Country, because it's so different from Houston. And I wanted a garden that the deer wouldn't eat, or that Bambi or Thumper wouldn't eat. And I was headed towards a Master Gardener's program, and he said, oh, no. He said, go to the Master Naturalists. They are a much more broadly focused and science-based program than the Master Gardeners, and well, of course, that's right up my alley, because I am a scientist, and I want to know the science behind the programs, the actions, the things that we do. So this was just a natural fit. And that's where I met Jim Stanley, Jim and Priscilla. They were both very, very active, and had a strong hand in guiding the program. And
Yes.
he was in the process of writing the first edition of his book on the hill country ecosystem and landscape and stewardship of this hill country system. And
So when you started volunteering after you graduated, did all of you start volunteering then?
Oh,
Or
yeah.
was it just, you did, okay. Were you volunteering here at Riverside Nature Center or in other places?
I was mostly here, and as I continue even today, when I'm not working on the fossil exhibit, out here in the gardens.
Okay.
I'm a part of the landscape crew, or the gardening crew, or whatever. And I love it. To me, a good day begins outside. Always, it begins outside. But I came here in order to learn about the plants that could be successfully grown. Now, the soil here is very different from what's away from the river, but still, you learn about the plants and have an opportunity to share some of what you learn. And not only is the learning important to me, but the sharing and passing along what I have learned that works. So this was just a natural fit. And therefore, for a couple of years, I was working with Jim Stanley in the LMAP program. And I was the geologist who went along to help people understand what the rock framework of their property was, where they came in the geologic column, how that fit into the region, and the people were always interested in it.
Did you know Bill Ward?
Oh, yes. Oh, I knew Bill years before I came out here.
Oh,
Because his specialty, carbonates, was mine also. After I got out of the university,
which university?
UT Austin, both degrees. And I went to work in Getty Oil Company, was the first company that I worked for. And there got involved working in carbonate systems in oil fields out in West Texas and New Mexico.
You were one of the only women in this field, probably.
No, even early on, there was a fellow graduate student who graduated about 5 years after I did. She came to work for Getty, and for a while there were the two of us. But over the years, we gathered a group, not only within Getty, then into Texaco, that was about a third women, 2/3 men. And that's about the ratio that comes out of universities now in geology, is 1/3, 2/3, sometimes more than a third. But it's not a man's field anymore, not at all. But no, it's been a fun career, and I have been just delighted that that career and the parts about which I had a lot of passion, paleontology being a big part of that, is something that I can bring back to the community here, and this exhibit with Riverside. And this is the second one I've done with them. About 4 years ago, we put on a just basic rock exhibit here with igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic rocks, and had a big display out in the atrium. And it was fun putting that together. So,
What has having been a master naturalist meant to you in your life?
It is so integrated with what I do that it doesn't stand alone. It doesn't stand separate. It's just a natural part of what I have done and what I will continue to do the rest of my life. Its principles and those that have guided my life in terms of understanding and caring for the natural environments. It's something that I've passed along to my children. In fact, our younger daughter is a master naturalist. In fact, she took her training here in this chapter, though she lived in Austin. She was able to arrange her schedule so that she could come here for classes.
Nice.
Do any of the people that you worked with in those early years stand out in your memory who were master naturalists?
Yeah, Diane Mcmahon. And she
name?
can, she's continues to be active with UGRA and water issues here in Kerrville and the Hill Country, very definitely. Several of the really strong proponents, especially from those early years, are gone. Barbara Lowenthal, who got so many of the gardening programs going here. And she was the one that started the Gleaners organization. And we carry it on, not as continuously as she does, but this is what I got from Barbara Lowenthal, and she passed away a couple of years ago now. But she has been a tremendous teacher here, and almost all of the gals who still work out in the garden learned at her elbow, and that includes Julie Clay and Susan McKinley, who have been the primary leaders since Barbara retired. And it's Barbara's lessons that we're passing on to others. Well, the curriculum is the foundation. It's the beginning, but it is only the beginning. The rest of it comes in the volunteer activities and learning and sharing with one another. And not just with one another, but anybody within earshot, anybody who gets invited, anybody who hears about the program, or any of the activities, and that opportunity to communicate the lessons that you've learned, not only the ones that you have been taught, or that others have taught you, but the ones that you learn by just doing, and either doing it right or doing it wrong and not doing it wrong again.
Great.
Well, that's one thing that my folks always encouraged in the three of us kids was, go experience, try something. Follow anything that appeals to your interest, to your curiosity.
It's so important to have parents who encourage your curiosity and don't try and stifle it.
Yes. Yes.
With what advice would you like to give to younger people?
Have fun.
Have fun.
All right.
Have fun doing what you're doing. Now, I have a peculiar definition of the word fun, maybe, but if it's interesting, if it piques your interest, if it's something that you get lost in, man, go for it.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming out. We
All right,
really
you're more
enjoyed
than
talking
welcome.
to you.
You're more than welcome.